Welcome to Out of the Office. I'm your host, M. Portner, bringing you ideas for your next Out of the Office adventure. On this month's episode, we're talking about Greenway projects in Roanoke County with Cronise and Lindsay Webb. Later in the episode, Alex will join us to talk about the Kite Festival coming up next month. Welcome, Lindsay, and welcome back, Megan.
Thank you, Em.
Yeah, so Megan and Lindsay, can you introduce yourselves and tell the listeners a little bit about what you do with the Greenways?
Sure. I'm Megan Cronise. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning for Roanoke County, and I typically find money for Greenways.
My name is Lindsay Webb, and I serve currently as the Assistant Director for Economic Development on the Business Retention and Operations side. But prior to this position, I worked in planning with Megan, and I worked in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism for over 13 years, working on the development of Greenway projects in Roanoke County.
Exciting. So before we get into all the project-related questions, a fun question, what's your favorite spot on the Greenway? And it doesn't have to be in the county. I won't dock you for liking a city or a Salem bit.
The piece that I've been to with my family the most lately has been the new Bridge Street piece in the city of Roanoke. It's pretty fantastic and a great connection between two existing pieces of Greenway.
Okay.
For me, it's really hard to pick one favorite. I usually, having worked on the projects for so many years, have favorite pieces of each project, but a few that I'll highlight since we're moving into the spring are the Catawba Greenway is a beautiful piece that provides a connectivity to Appalachian Trail and Maccabee Knob. It's got beautiful views across the valley, also the Catawba Creek. In Green Hill Park, the Roanoke River Greenway section out there is really beautiful this time of year with the wildflowers that'll be blooming and everybody getting outside to recreate and enjoy the river for tubing and fishing. So those are two of my favorites.
Yeah, that's really great, especially out at Green Hill Park. That's a really nice segment. I am addicted to sugar, so the bit of the Greenway in the city that you go past Blue Cow is one of my favorites because it's always nice to stop in for a little sweet treat.
Absolutely.
And Lindsay, you mentioned that you worked for Parks and Rec for a long time, and the Greenway is kind of like your project. Can you give us a little history of the Roanoke Valley Greenways?
Sure. So efforts to build out the Greenway network in the Roanoke Valley really began in the early 90s. So we're over 30 years into development of greenways. Back in the early 90s, there was a nonprofit foundation called Valley Beautiful that was focused on wanting to provide better access to rivers and conservation efforts. And there were steering committees and public meetings held in the early 90s, which led to the development of a 1995 Greenway plan. And shortly after that, that was the first plan in the Roanoke Valley. The second piece of that was the hiring of a Greenway coordinator. That happened in 1996. That was Liz Belcher, who served for over 25 years, a cheerleading and a very dedicated employee for development of the Greenways throughout the region. And she worked, and I think in 1997 was when an intergovernmental agreement was signed. So that was when Roanoke City, Roanoke County, the city of Salem, and the town of Vinton all joined together regionally to formally have an intergovernmental agreement. So since that time, Roanoke County joined the Greenway Commission in 2016. We've had a 2008 or 2007 and 2008, and another Greenway plan update in 2018. So our next Greenway plan update, our 10-year plan, will be due in 2028. So we'll be looking to do that soon. But yeah, there's been over 30 years of development behind the scenes, and it takes a lot of federal state resources, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But a lot of partners throughout the region to make these greenways a reality.
Yeah, and we have a lot of projects underway in the county. So there are 3 segments right now out by Explore Park that are in various stages of construction. Can you tell me about how the progress has been going on those?
Sure. So the first section of the East Roanoke River Greenways construction was completed in Roanoke County in 2023. That's located west of the Blue Ridge Parkway off of Highland Road. There are 2 sections located between the Blue Ridge Parkway and Explore Park. Part of that section of the Greenway ties into the Roanoke River Parkway, the Blue Ridge Parkway, providing that connectivity, and also ties into Explore Park. One neat feature of that project is that it crosses over a closed capped landfill that used to serve as a regional landfill for our area. So that's going to be a really unique piece. And then we have a final piece of the Greenway under construction through Explore Park that'll terminate at Roanoke Road. And that section is under construction now, and we anticipate that being completed by spring of 2026.
It's really exciting. And there's a gap that you've been working on that's between where the Greenway hits the city-county line and then the existing Greenway in the county near the Blue Ridge Parkway. So what are the proposed routes to fill that gap?
So we've been working on that piece for quite some time, and this is the third time we've been out to the community to talk about different ways to bridge that gap. And we have 9 different alignments that we requested feedback on. There were 2 north of the river, 1 in the river, 2 routes south of the river we'd studied before, and then another number of alignments along roadways and other alignments. We came up with anything we could potentially come up with to try to fill that gap between the existing Roanoke River Greenway in the city and in Roanoke County. So we had a survey that closed the end of the month and 2 community meetings in February. We had about 140 people come out to those meetings, and we had almost 300 surveys completed. So we're going through that information now to figure out which alignments we want to move forward on for another round of community meetings this summer.
Was there a strong preference in those early responses of which alignment people were favoring?
So I think what we've seen in general is that alignments along the river are preferred over alignments that are along roadways and in a distance off of the river.
Yeah, you got to stay on the river, right?
It's very challenging
Yeah.
along the river in that section of the county. There's a lot of challenges out there.
You mentioned there was one route in the river? I assume we're not waiting.
The dream alignment that we talked about, to have a bridge kind of in the river,
An elevated structure.
that would be a signature amenity in the valley, but very expensive to construct.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like, the Instagram queen part of the river where it's like, oh, that's such a unique structure. But yeah, I imagine building a bridge through a river is not a cheap project.
And lots of permitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenging section, to Megan's point, because of the Niagara Dam that's located out in that area. We also have the Norfolk Southern Rail line that runs on the north side of the river. So there's a variety of challenges in that area that make it a complicated project. Topography is very steep. So right-of-way acquisition and permitting is going to be challenging on this section of the Greenway.
So what are the next steps for that part of the Greenway?
So after the community meetings that we host this summer, what we anticipate, or what we would like to get to, is a consensus scenario for where the Greenway should be located. And then we would like to start applying for funding this September to at least start the design of that section of Greenway.
Yeah, and these are huge, like multi-year, sometimes multi-jurisdiction projects that, as we established, cost a lot of money. So where does that money come from?
Typically, it is from state or federal sources. Sometimes we do have some county match funding, but for example, for the 3 segments of Greenway that are under construction, each one has a different funding program and a different level of county match on it. So that's what we try to do, is maximize county tax dollars by finding as much grant funding as we can.
So what's going on the west side?
So currently, if you're out on the West Riverside Road area between Green Hill Park and Riverside Park in the city of Salem, you're going to see construction of a section of the Greenway. It's going to be located, going to be a parking lot located on West Riverside Drive. And then a section of the Greenway will run on the south side of the river, parallel the river. And it will tie into a section of Greenway located in the city of Salem. So that effort's been underway for a number of years to get it to construction. We anticipate construction being completed in later this summer. And then we're looking conceptually at other parts of the Greenway to connect to Green Hill Park in the future. And I'll let Megan talk a little bit about that. But we certainly had some storm damage recently on the section of Greenway that's under construction. So we had hoped to have that open earlier this year about this time, but we are looking right now at summer. But it's going to be a beautiful section when it's open.
Yeah, I know the area that section's in, that's, already a beautiful area. So to be able to access it on a Greenway is so great.
We've already got a lot of interest from the fishing community and boaters.
Yeah.
So we know it'll be a very popular section. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be located very close to the river level. And it's a partnership with Roanoke County and the city of Salem.
Yeah. And there's a community meeting coming up for that section, or is it?
There is.
Yeah.
So for what we call phase 2, which phase 1's under construction, we've been trying to figure out where should we route the Greenway between the existing, or the trailhead parking lot that's under construction, and Green Hill Park. So we had a community meeting this time last year to talk with the community about, what would you think about potentially putting the Greenway on the south side of the river instead of the north side of the river? The challenge with the north side is that it would require 2 bridges, and the cost of steel has expanded exponentially. So $7 million worth of bridges alone would be required for that northern segment. Wow. So that's why we were looking back on the south side where we wouldn't need bridges. Is that a potential option? So we want to talk to the community again about some investigations that we've done to see, what would you think about these alignments and or the northern alignment to figure out how do we span that gap on the west side between what we have under construction in Green Hill Park.
And that community meeting, is that still April 2nd?
April 2nd from 5 to 7 p.m. is an open house style meeting at Fort Lewis Elementary School.
Great. If anyone has questions about greenways, I would really encourage them to go to the community meetings, because I went to one of the ones you had recently, and the giant posters that are blown up so you can actually see all of the routes and the staff that's there to talk about what's going on. I know the one I went to, Lindsay, was constantly surrounded by people, and she has so much knowledge to share, and your whole staff does, of what's happening, what are the thoughts, the ideas, and being able to answer questions is a really great reason to have a community meeting.
Well, and we always have surveys as a part of those meetings too. So we've got a way to get feedback from the community. So we have paper surveys available at the meeting. We also have online surveys available. So we'll have one open for this meeting for the West Roanoke River Greenway Phase 2 as well.
And then, Lindsay, you mentioned another exciting thing happening on the west, where there's talk of potentially running from Green Hill Park all the way out to Montgomery County. So what's all that about?
Yeah, sure. So the Roanoke Valley Greenway plan that I mentioned earlier, so conceptual plans are to connect from Montgomery County all the way to Explorer Park in Roanoke County across the valley. So we're focused now on construction on the west right now for Phase 1. Getting to Green Hill Park will be the second stage of our focus, but then looking from there all the way out to the Montgomery County line. That's in the conceptual planning stages. And
we obtained some technical assistance from the National Park Service a few years ago to start the study for that section of Greenway. That's also part of the Valley to Valley Trail Network. VDOT did a study on it. So what we had 2 rounds of community meetings in 2022 and 2023 and talked to the community about potential alignments in that area. That area is very challenging because the river goes up and down and up and down, and there's 2 sets of railroad tracks that parallel the river and cross the river. So, plus lots of topography. It's a challenging area to try to plan for. So we do have a draft plan that is being written right now, and we anticipate taking that forward to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors later this year for adoption as part of the Roanoke County 200 plan.
Okay. And then, Lindsay, you mentioned another Greenway project going on. What's that?
Yeah, we have a section of the Glade Creek Greenway under construction in Roanoke County, just kind of northeast of the town of Vinton in Vineyard Park West. And that project's under construction. It's about half a mile greenway, and it should be completed and wrapped up by this summer.
Exciting. So how many Greenway projects are currently going on right now?
Technically 5.
Yeah, it's really exciting, all the projects going on and potential conceptual projects coming down the line. Are there any final thoughts you want people to know about greenways?
I think one of the things that we've been hearing with the greenways under construction is that people are so anxious to get on the greenways. They're going around the construction barriers and interfering with the construction activity occurring. So we really need people to respect those barriers and stay out of the areas that are under construction so we can get these greenways built, hopefully safely and without any incidents.
Yeah, there's plenty of greenways to enjoy. You don't got to go sneaking into things that aren't open yet.
Exactly.
Right on.
And my final thoughts would be just that by the time someone is out enjoying the greenway, there's been over a decade or more of history that has gone into development of the greenway. So I just really want to, there's a lot of federal and state partners and regional partners, and greenways are a huge component for outdoor recreation and tourism and for our residents in our area. But they take a lot of work behind the scenes, and we all regionally work really well together from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to make sure that these projects are constructed and designed and maintained.
Yeah, the greenways really are an amazing attribute to our whole region, and the fact that they're not just in the county and not just in the city and not just in Salem and not just in the town, but really touching all of these localities really speaks to all of the great work that everyone's doing behind the scenes to get these out. Thank you both for coming on the podcast. It was great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. We're joined by Alex North now from Parks, Recreation, and Tourism to talk about the upcoming Kite Festival.
It's hard to believe we're already talking April events. We're halfway through March recording, and it'll be here really soon.
Yeah, it feels like it's spring outside now. The trees are blooming outside, and the Kite Festival kind of feels like the kickoff to spring as far as Park, Rec, and Tourism events go. So tell me about the Kite Festival.
Yeah, so this is our 24th annual Blue Ridge Kite Festival out at Green Hill Park. It is a free event for the community to enjoy and see thousands of kites up in the sky, all different shapes, sizes. And really, it's a great day out at Green Hill Park, and it's something I've been a part of for the last few years. And originally, it was an event that we helped promote and put on in partnership with the Roanoke County Salem Chamber. But back since about 2019, 2022, when we brought it back, it's our event for the community to enjoy. And folks come from really all over, from what we've heard, not only to participate in the event, but come and see some beautiful kites up in the sky out at Green Hill Park.
Yeah, so I assume you've been to a lot of these events. So what's the best kite you've ever seen?
So I've been going this will be my 2, 3, 4. This will be my fourth kite festival. And it really doesn't do it justice, even the video and stuff, until you're out there in the green space, because you've been to Green Hill. It's a very large event space and it's awesome. But once you see a bunch of different kites up in the air, it's really cool to see, because it's not like a normal kite like when we were kids. You throw it up in the air and you run and you hope it flies. These are some, I say professionals, or folks who know what they're doing out there. Yeah. So the Richmond Air Force Kite Club, they're based out of Richmond, but a lot of folks from Virginia come all around, and the center of the event field is roped off for the professionals. So those are the ones where you'll see the guys standing there knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
With some tandem or dual action kites, to where it's not just one end of a kite with a string. They use both hands to make them do different movements and different techniques, which is really cool, and you don't get to see that every day.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite kite, there's a huge purple squid that goes up in the air, and the gentleman who gets there, he gets there early in the morning, that's sitting out in the field, and you're like, what is that? My first year's like, what is that going to be? And then after about 30 minutes, he gets that thing up in the air, and it's up all day long. So it's really cool to see, and it's something definitely you don't see every day at Green Hill Park.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be your favorite, because I feel like in all of the marketing materials, you find a picture of that one, and it's kind
of like the hidden Easter egg. Maybe not so hidden, but that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's more of the star of the show. It's less the hidden Easter egg if it's that big.
yeah, I guess. But it's something that's really cool and unique, and folks, when they come in and they see it, it's really eye-opening to see. And these folks travel up and down the East Coast during the spring. I know one of the other local kite flyers, Mike Kleiber, he's normally there, a few days before, testing out the wind and reporting back to the folks.
Yeah.
It's very
serious.
It's very interesting, because I learned from him that there are actually kites that are no wind kites.
Oh.
Yeah, so you don't need wind, and it's pretty cool. He's got 2 or 3 of those that, just in case when we're out there doing media or promo, he's like, just in case it's not very windy that morning, we'll use that. So you never know what type of kite you're going to see out of the kite festival.
I feel like that's the kind of kite I needed as a child, because I was not a very successful kite flyer.
That's exactly what I was telling him the first time he showed me a few years ago. So.
Okay, so besides flying kites, what else is going on that day? Yeah,
so we have different kids' crafts and activities that'll be going on. Our staff will be having a few tents with that, but Virginia 811 is the one who's sponsoring some of those activities. And we have a lot of different local artisan vendors who will have some artisan items available for sale. And then we will also have kites available for sale with some of our vendors. And then we'll also have some local businesses there giving away some free items and some, maybe kite themed giveaways. So it's really a great event. And, we also have our food trucks, because what event do we have that doesn't include food trucks out of Green Hill? So I have a bunch of different options. We got Grandpa Ike's mini donuts, some ice cream vendors, barbecue, some funnel cakes, you name it, we'll have it there.
Funnel cakes are peak summer, all the throwback, my favorite junk food.
Especially for anything with a festival, it's like you kind of gotta have it.
So you mentioned food trucks, which I feel like is a good segue into other events that are starting to pop up now that it's getting warmer.
Yes, so we have our Food Truck Thursday, which returns. This is our 3rd year of doing that out at Green Hill Park. It kicks off on Thursday, April 24th, and we'll have some different food vendors at each one. It rotates through our different facilities throughout the county. And so the one coming up on April 24th will feature Suda's Kitchen, Rocky Mount Smokehouse, Countryman Jamaican Grill, and Chris's Coffee and Custard.
Hey, we love Chris's.
Yeah, it's great. And, those vendors, we rotate those throughout each one to kind of have a variety, but we're definitely excited to be kicking off this year at Green Hill Park coming up just within 4 or 5 days after Kite Festival.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I think usually we do my little challenge, and I've thus far held this from you, but we could just add the kite festival. It's another thing on the list that I have never done in the county before. So
That's okay. We'll add it to the list, and we'll check in next month to see how you did, if you're able to fly your own kite.
yeah.
But, something else we'll have at Kite Festival is the first 1,000 kids who get there, you'll have access to go to the giveaway tent and receive a free kite. So that's one of the more popular items we've had the last few years. So you'll see different types of kites, but then you'll also see the new giveaway one presented by our sponsor, United Healthcare, this year.
Oh, that's great.
So maybe if you get there early, you may get your hands on one.
I think I'll save them for the kiddos, but I'll keep my eye out for a kite that I'd want. Maybe I'll get really into kite flying and get a giant purple squid.
We'll see. I don't know about that. That would be a truly next level.
That would be like my my become super obsessed, and then 4 years from now finally invest in
Yeah, you'd be traveling the East Coast, going on to a bunch of kite festivals, just flying your giant kite.
Yeah. Hey, could be a new avenue of side hustles. All the kids these days are on their side hustles.
There you go. But we're excited for Kite Festival. Fingers crossed on the weather, but it is a rain or shine event, and then it's free to the public to enjoy, and that's coming up on Saturday, April 19th.
Great. Well, I will see you there.
Perfect.
If you like this episode, be sure to share it, and we have an exciting experiment next month that you won't want to miss. Happy exploring.